Okay, hello everyone. My name is Victor Momoh. I'm an Excel MVP from Nigeria and I run a YouTube channel called XLMoments. I want to welcome you all to Excel Weekend, the 10th edition, and I want to thank Cristiano Gaval for giving me this opportunity. It's a privilege to be here. So in today's session, I'm going to be talking about Regex. Some call it Regex. That battle lingers on in Excel. Okay, so and we're going to try to master Regex, which is practically impossible using examples. But I feel that as wide as the subject is, it gets better when you see a lot of examples, and it also spurs your interest to want to learn. Regex is short for regular expressions. Regular. So because of regular expressions, a lot of people call it Regex, but you kind of hear Regex, being maybe more popular than Regex. So I'm going to be going in between both of them. I'm never exactly sure which one I'm going to say. So whichever one I say, please just accept it as that. But I'm talking about regular expressions, no matter how it sounds. Okay, so in terms of an intro, I have one here which says that regular expressions, they are powerful pattern matching tools used to find, extract, replace, or validate text based on specific rules. When you think about Regex, the easiest way to think about it is just to think of wildcards in Excel. Where we use the asterisk, the question mark, and tilde. Okay, so you want to match, a character, a question mark, one or more characters, asterisks. If you want to match the wildcard itself, then you kind of mask it with a tilde. So this is more like, advanced wildcards, right? That's the way I see it, because this allows you to do, more complicated patterns, and it has, more symbols or characters or tokens as they call them, which allow you, to perform, more complicated pattern matching. So in terms of, capabilities, of course, pattern matching, extracting text, search and replace. So kind of like when you do a find, you say find what matches this pattern, replace it with this. You can also use it for validation. Sometimes you type in your password into some fields and they tell you, it does not meet the complexity criteria. So you can have Regex at the back end, which is testing what you've entered against a predefined pattern and saying, oh yes, this is good, or no, this is bad. Okay, so this is me just, lifting what I got from ChatGPT in terms of capabilities, but I felt it was good enough. So credit to ChatGPT there, and that's why I'm using it. But I can go on reading all this, but it would only make sense, when we use them in examples, and that's how you build, fluency and competence in using them. Okay, so what I've done here is just to put, together a list of, tokens. Tokens are just the symbols you use, like maybe the question mark or the asterisk that you are used to if you are used to wildcards in Excel, and I just try to show a little on their description and an example. But I don't want to spend too much time here. I will touch on one or two, then I go into the examples and I would explain whatever I'm doing as I do the examples. So let's look at the first one. We could think of a caret, right? So a caret here is just saying that when you put a caret and you put a particular string, you are saying, okay, match that string or look at a larger string and check if what the string that I have given you appears at the beginning of it. So look at an example. You have hello, right? If you have a string that is hello world, right, the word hello is there. If you have a string that is say hello, the word hello is there. But when you put a caret and say caret hello, what you're saying is that hello must be at the start of the string. Okay, so when you have hello world, it would match it, but it's not going to match it in say hello. Why? Because hello is not at the beginning of the string, it is say. Okay, so when you really want to have it start with that particular string, then you can put a caret with it. The converse is to use a dollar. Dollar is saying it must end with whatever string that precedes it. So if I put something like this, world dollar, what this is saying is that look for the string world, but it must be at the end of the string, meaning there's nothing else after world, right? So look at this. In hello world, this will be fine because it is world, but if you do worldwide, it's not going to work. Not because there's no space between world and wide, but just because wide is the end of this string and not world. Okay, so that's the points there, right? The other one that I use a lot are like the quantifiers. There are sometimes you are trying to match maybe a particular character, and that character could appear multiple times. Like for example, maybe say batteries that come in different sizes, A, and you want to say, okay, look at this string and just match any of the battery sizes you see. So it could be A, it could be AA, it could be AAA. So you could do something like maybe say A plus. What A plus means is that that A that precedes the plus could occur one time or it could occur multiple times. Okay, so the implication is that it could be A, it could be AA, it could be AAA, it could be AAAA, and so on. Okay, so that's kind of like the idea there. So for the quantifiers, you could use asterisks, you could use plus, you could use question mark, but you can see that they all have their special meanings. Then you have the escape character, which is the backslash, right? Because when you write something like /B, right? Normally, if you just write B, it's like it's looking for a string, that contains B. But when you now say I'm looking for /B, it now knows that, oh, I'm looking for like a word, right? So as in it has a special meaning. So it's like in Excel, when you're looking for an asterisk, you will not use an asterisk by itself, because if you use an asterisk, it will look for a wildcard. You will now say, oh, tilde asterisk, so that it knows that you are looking for the asterisk as a character and not as a wildcard. So that's kind of the equivalent, that you have here, which is the slash. Okay, so the same thing, here for like maybe say A to Z, capital A to Z, 0 to 9. When you put them in square brackets like this, what you're saying is that match anything that falls within that range. For some of you that are familiar with Power Query, you will see things like maybe A.Z, which is like saying A to Z. So that's the equivalent of what we have here. And 0 to 9 here just means anything from 0 to 9. Okay, so and you may also know that, okay, well, instead of saying 0 to 9, 0 to 9 is equivalent to /D. /D is a digit. You could use /D, you could use 0 to 9. They mean the same thing. But, don't get, all hung up on this now. I would explain them as we go in. So I think at this point, I want to switch to Excel. Yeah, this is just a summary I picked up from support.microsoft.com. But let me switch into Excel and let's do some examples. So we can fulfill the topic, mastery through examples. Okay, so let's go to Excel. Okay, great. I think I'm in the wrong sheet, but I'll find my way back. Okay, good. All right. So now what I've just done is I have some simple, call them simple. It's going to get a little complex as we go on. I have some simple examples and I have the task and I have the result here. So meaning this is what I want to do based on the string, to my left. Okay. So now this one is saying the boy is good and I want to extract, all, words, right? Okay. So I just need a pattern that will be able to tell me, okay, this is a word, and this is not a word. How does it do that? It may just look at the characters and see if there's a space at the end, and based on that, it says this is a word and it can help me get that. Okay, but let's, do something first before we do that example, which is just to talk about the 3 functions that you have available to you in Excel when you want to do regex, right? You could use regex based on functions, or you could use them, using like Python in Excel, which just gives you, the entire, like RE, library, and you can do whatever it is you want to do, or is a module it's called. I keep up mixing library and module based on R and Python. Okay, so but in terms of the functions, you have 3 of them. So once you type reg, you can see the 3. There's regex extract, there's regex replace, and there's regex test, and they are kind of explicit in their naming. So regex extract is saying, look at the string, if it matches the pattern I've given it, extract it. Okay, now regex replace is saying, look at the string, if it matches the pattern, look for the portion that matches the pattern and replace it with this. It's kind of like a find and replace with formulas. Okay, right? Then the last one is regex test, which is just saying, I want to test if this string contains this pattern. So it's like a true or false. Does it contain the pattern? Yes. Does it not? No. Okay, so regex extract is like, taking that one step further. If it contains it, it extracts it. If not, it doesn't. Regex replace also takes that one step further. If it exists, then it replaces it with whatever you've said it should replace it with. So it's basically that regex test, regex extract, regex replace. You do a find and replace. Okay, so that's it. So let's get in here and look at this example. The most important thing in using regex in Excel is not the function you use, it's the pattern. Once you get the pattern, you're fine. and the patterns work across different programming languages. We are only leveraging that in Excel, and thank God we have those functions now, because we can now do more powerful what's the word I want to use, transformations, extraction, whatever it is that you want to do. Okay, so I could do regex extract. I say the boy is good. I know that for my pattern, which is the next argument, always put it in, double quotes. Okay, so I could say I want to use a /w, which can give me like a word, right? And then maybe close the double quote. Let's see what it gives us. That's what I do most times. Then when I see the result, I start to make sense of it and then, build it to get what I want. Okay, so doing that, it kind of means like it's giving us just a T. And I'm like, why is he giving me just a T? Right? This is where, you start to use some of those quantifiers, because I feel that he's doing the right thing, but he's extracting just one character. And I'm like, okay, I probably need more character. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in front of the W a plus, which is kind of like saying, one or more. Okay, let's see what happens here. Right, good. Now it seems like we get the D. But there's still one problem, which is that we don't have the boy is good. Okay, so let's look at the next argument of the regex extract. This is why we don't have it, because the default is for it to give us what? The first match. So the first match here is D, right? So boy is good will never show up. But if you change that and say all matches, right, and you do 1, okay, so now you see that we have them, D, boy is good. So this is equivalent to doing a text split and using a space as a delimiter. Something like that. Okay, good. Let's get to the next one. The next one is for us to extract the digits in this string. So you can see that, it's a mix and mash of numbers and text, and you want to extract the numbers. I'll use regex extract again. I'll select the string, then the pattern. So the pattern, because I know it's a digit, right? I told you there are 2 ways to do it. You could say digits, square brackets 0 to 9. You could do something like this. Okay? Let's close the bracket. So you can see that it gives us 2, which means, yes, it's able to identify that there's a number 2. But you notice that the digits are not just 1 character long. 23 has 2 digits. 45 has 2 digits. It could have more than that. So we don't know how many digits, it could have, assuming I can't see everything, in that cell. So what I would do is, instead of doing just 0 to 9, I would add a plus there. So the plus there is to say that, okay, this could occur, more than 1 time, 1 or more times. So let's see what happens. Okay, so now with that, I'm able to get what's 23. So it's able to see 23, but I still need to get the others. How do I do that? You probably already know now from the first example, which is by changing the third argument to all matches, right? So let's do all matches. Okay, right, and now we have 23, 45, and 89. And you could, decide to concatenate all of them if you want to have them in one cell. Maybe using array to text, which is a function I like so much, which is going to use a comma space as the delimiter. All right, so close the bracket, and you can see that you have 23, 45, 89. And if there's something else added there, you say, and it turns 89 in 2025, something like that, you can see that 2025 also appears. Right, so we could use 0 to 9, and don't forget I also mentioned that we could also use what? A /d. So instead of 0 to 9, I could do a /d. It's equivalent. So you can see that we have exactly the same thing. Let's go to the next one. The next one, we have a couple of digits, but I want to extract only those that are 3 characters, that have 3 characters, 3 digits, in this case. So I'm going to use the same pattern. It's going to be a regex extract. I'm going to select this, and in terms of my pattern, I'm going to do a /d. Right, now you already know that I should do like a plus, because it's going to be 1 or more, and I'm going to do 1 here, all matches. But you see the result. Now this is the result. The result extracts all the digits. It breaks them out quite well, but it doesn't discriminate between 2 digits, 3 digits, or whatever. So what do you do in this case? This is where you use, I will call it like an absolute quantifier. So instead of using plus, because plus means 1 or more, but what you're interested in this case is 3, specifically 3. So what you do is that you take out the plus, and in curly braces, here you have to always be careful, because there are times you use square brackets, there are times you use parentheses, there are times you use, curly braces. So in this case, curly braces quantifiers, you put a 3 there and you close it. What this is saying is that whatever precedes that 3, which is a digit /d, make sure it occurs 3 times. Those are the only things I want to extract. Okay, so you put the pattern and you put the quantifier in front of it. So let's see what we get now. So do you see now that we have just, those that are 3 digits, okay, by putting /d and 3. Let's do our array to text again, just to put it in one cell. Okay, good, that's that. So now, here it's saying, can you find the word Excel in this string? This string is Excel weekend is great. Of course, Excel weekend is great. That's why we are here. So can we find the word Excel in here? Most of you can say the answer is yes. But if I want to do that using Regex, I just do Regex test because I just want to check, is it there or is it not there? I select this, and in terms of the pattern, because I want to teach something here, I'm just going to write it wrongly. Some of you already know what I've done wrong. Okay, let's close. And it says false. But you're like, oh, I can see it here. It's there. Why does it return false? Because it is case sensitive. Okay, so there are 2 ways to fix it. One way is to change this, of course, to uppercase E, and it gives us a true. The second way is to use the next argument. Okay, the next argument talks about case sensitivity, and we can say I want a case insensitive match, meaning that lowercase e and uppercase e are equivalent. So either way, you get it to be true. All right, so let's do a slightly more complicated one, which I would simplify with some assumptions just to make it easy. I want to extract my email address from that string. My email is vic@gmail.com. So I just need to get a pattern that makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to use maybe regex extract again. I'm going to select this. The most important thing, like I said, is the pattern. What do I know? For my email, let's just assume here that everybody will use only alphabets before the @gmail.com. But of course, people can use numbers like vic76 at this and that. So let's assume they only use alphabets. For that, you can do something like this, A to Z. A to Z means that it would have characters between A and Z. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's somewhere between A and Z. And it will occur 1 or more times because at least you expect the person to maybe use an email like say, oh, AB at this, AC at that, not just A at something. So let's assume it would be at least, maybe 2 characters. We could decide to do 2 characters, or we could say, okay, they could do 1 or more. You could use a plus to say, okay, it could be 1 character or more, right? After that, you know that there must be an @ So this first part is like the Vic part. It matches characters that occur 1 or more times. There's an @. After the @ then it now gets to the domain, gmail.com. So we assume here that, that Gmail can be 2 characters or more. So nobody will have an email at a.com or at x.com or at y.com. It will be at least 2 characters. So you can write something like this, A to Z, that occurs. If you write it this way, based on what you've learned in the previous example, this will mean that that domain is always 2 characters long, meaning it's always like AB or CD or EF. But no, that's not the case. It is 2 or more. So what you can do is you put a 2 and a comma. If you don't have an upper limit, then just close the parentheses. If you had an upper limit, like say it can be more than 5, then you can say 2,5. So in this case, just do 2, meaning it's not upperly bounded. Okay, and then we can put a .com, something like that, just to simplify it. Close the bracket. Let's see what we get. Okay, and we get vic@gmail.com because it matches that pattern exactly. So let me copy this to the next one. The next one has 2 email addresses, so the only thing I'm going to change here is just to come to the end and then say 1, all matches, so that it can extract multiple email addresses from the same one. Okay, and then we have that. Now here it says, okay, can you extract all vowels? So I want to extract all vowels from this string, and I mean vowels in the English language. My apologies. Okay, so here the vowels in the English language are what? A, E, I, O, U. Just put all of them in square brackets, so it will look for all of them. Okay, and you can put (1) so that it finds everything. Okay, so those are all of them. You could do anything from here, whether unique or, concat, which is just bring all of them together, and then you have that. This one here, I want to extract, every non-digit, meaning I don't want the 12 or the 15, but I want every other thing. So digits normally use /d, lowercase. Non-digits use /D. So here I could just do regex extract, here, my pattern, I will do capital D, maybe plus, and I'll say all matches, something like that. Okay, so what it does is that it kind of uses the digits as like delimiters. So you can see that after 12, it breaks it and does is great, and it breaks it at 15 again and it does is better. Okay, so seeing them as like two separate things, which I can of course bring together using, concats. All right, okay, so close bracket, and then we have that. So these examples, have touched on a lot of things. There are many things you've learned without even knowing by just being able to do all of this. And the more you do them, the more the patterns kind of stay in your head. You're not trying to memorize anything, you just know what it is you're trying to do. And sometimes, of course, always have the cheat sheet and go look it up, but as you use them, it starts to feel, natural to you. Okay, so let's go into some other examples, and just forge ahead. Right now it's going to get a little complex, but I'm watching the time just to make sure I'm within it. So for this, I have, a long string, more like maybe the minutes of a meeting, something written like that. And then my manager comes and says, "Oh, Victor, can you extract all the phone numbers in here?" I'm assuming here that I'm using like the American, phone numbers, which are like 10 digits. So anything that is 10 digits in here, I want to extract them out. Okay, so how do I do that? I'm not going to start looking at each of them one after the other and copying and pasting. Of course not. I wouldn't show you that in Excel weekend. So what we can do is we can do regex extract. We pick the entire like string, which is everything in there, right? And then we look at the pattern. The pattern is straightforward, actually. You will see. You are dealing with digits, so it's /d. And you know that because they are phone numbers and they must be 10 digits, you can just put in curly braces 10. Okay, which is to say that look within all this and find for me, 10 digits that are, together that way. That's all. And then you put comma 1, all matches, right? Okay, so you can see that it does extract every of them, but it extracts them from left to right. Maybe it would be good to have an argument there that can allow it spill in the opposite direction, but no problem. You can just use a function like to call, right, to say bring this into a column. So to call is going to convert that, into a column. And now we have, okay, I can step it up one. We have all the phone numbers, right? This one just seems to be off in terms of the the formatting. Okay, let's just do it. Okay, so these are all the phone numbers in there. So even if there were 50 or 100 of them, I've extracted all of them with a simple, /d curly braces 10. So this is, very powerful. Okay, so let me do the next example. This one is a little tricky, but you would appreciate it when we are done. So for this, I have, all the presidents of the US, right? And I have all their names. There's only one problem. The problem is that I don't have a character between the first name and the last name, which is, of course, a problem, right? But what happens is that there's a transition. You can see E, W, N, A. So at the end of the first name, there's a lowercase, and it jumps to an uppercase for the next name. For people that have three names, like here, maybe Rutherford, Beckard, Hayes, you can see the transition and the transition. So, that's kind of, what the problem is. And I want to break it down into the different names. Most people will say here that, yes, you can use, Power Query. Yes, and just use, character transition. Okay, saying lower to uppercase, and it will work. And it would, but I actually set a trap in here. I'm not going to go into Power Query, but I'll show you what the problem is. So let's try and do this, using regex based on what we see now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do regex extract. Okay, so, and then I select this. Let's use George Washington as the first example. Okay, so then now in terms of the pattern, what's the pattern? Let's try and make sense of it. The pattern is this. It starts with an uppercase. We can see that clearly. There's a capital G. So because it starts with an uppercase, I'm going to put square brackets and I'm going to do A to Z. But I'm using uppercase alphabets. Okay, right? Uppercase alphabets, which means that it's going to start with something between A and Z. I don't know what it is, but that's what it's going to be. After that, it is now going to have what? Lowercase alphabets. And those ones would occur one or more times. So let's recap this. A to Z here, the first one here is trying to match the G because it always starts with a capital. And then we have, E-O-R-G-E. That's the lowercase that, occurs one or more times. Okay, so that's why I put the plus there, right? And then I close the parentheses. So that should give me George. And the same pattern works for Washington and it should work for all of them. So let's now do this and do comma 1. Okay, so all matches. Okay, so this looks like it works. Let's copy down all of them. Okay, so let's see. So it kind of works across them. Even see here where we have George Herbert Walker Bush. We have George Herbert Walker Bush. It's excellent. There's only one problem. Where's the problem? The problem is a name like this. This name here is Lyndon B. Johnson. The B there, right, is like his middle name. Maybe Baines Johnson. Okay, but because you know what's the logic we are using? The logic we are using is that there's an uppercase and then it transits, you know, to lower cases, and then from the first name to the next name there's a lower to upper transition. That's what we are assuming. But in this case, because he doesn't have a full middle name, the B there, you know, that transition doesn't happen, and because of that you have Lyndon Johnson. But I would have loved to have Lyndon B. Johnson. Okay, so how do we fix this? It's simple, right? We need to adjust this pattern a little. So the pattern assumes that yes, you know, it would always have an uppercase and then it would have lowercase, you know, that occurs one or more times. But there could be a case where if you are using like the initials, you don't have the lowercase portion, meaning the lowercase could be there or may not be there. Okay, that's the meaning of it. It means it may be there or may not be there. Okay, so instead of using a plus, which assumes one or more times, you could use an asterisk, which is kind of saying 0 or more. Okay, somebody else could use a question mark. But the point is here is to say that there are some times that you may just see an uppercase without anything, which is like B. Johnson, you know, and I have another name like that in there. So let's see what this changes. So let's do enter. Nothing changes for George Washington. But when you go down, let's now see if we've gotten it. Okay. So where's Lyndon B? Come on, yes. So you see, now we have Lyndon, we have B, and we have Johnson. Here we have Harry, S, and Truman. Initially, we would have only had Harry Truman. So the pattern is the most important thing. Once you get the pattern right, you know, you can get this to work. I did this on my YouTube channel and I made it, you know, like one dynamic array formula that works for everything. But in the interest of time, you know, I wouldn't do that here. Okay, so now to the next example. All right, so look at this here. We have some students, we have subjects, and what we want to get is we want to get the total, you know, score by subject. Of course, we can add the students in there if we want to do it, but we just want to get the total, you know, score per subject. Now, the interesting thing here, as you probably notice, is that, well, you have the score and the subject, you know, kind of squashed, and the problem is that it's not even consistent. So maybe here you have a hyphen, right? Here you can see English 34 is all squashed. Here you have maybe a hyphen, a space. Here you have hyphen. Here you have just a space. So it's like, it's just a lot happening. Somebody could say, we could use a text split, put a lot of delimiters. It starts to get tricky when you have things like this, English 34, French 88. Why? Because those ones, as in squashed that way, you know, it's difficult to say, oh, what is the delimiter, as opposed to when you have a space and, you know, a hyphen or a comma and so on. So we're going to use regex for a part of it. And then there's, you know, some other functions that will be used, but the heart of it, you know, will be regex. Okay. So one thing you would appreciate here is that regex can break, you know, this thing down without even sweating. Okay, so let me show you an example here. So let me do regex, you know, extract, right? So let's come in here. And let me say I want to use a pattern. So I want to get something that looks like that English. Now, if I want to break that English out, what's the pattern? It's similar to what we did in the last example. There's an uppercase, right? Something like this, followed by, you know, lower cases that occur one or more times, something like that. Okay, let's just do this. So you can see that I get English and French, right? So by just looking at that pattern, it's able to give me that. I could also say, well, if I don't want to write it to look this complex, I can take advantage of the case sensitivity, you know, part of it. And instead of doing all that, I would just say, just use A to Z that occurs multiple times. Okay, give me all the matches and make it case insensitive. What this means is that whether English is written as capital E, lowercase e, it doesn't matter. So let's see. This is just slightly shorter. Okay, so it gives me English and French. Good. Now, we can also use the same regex to also get the numbers, right? We can use something like this /d and say plus. Okay, something like that. Okay, so you see we can get English, French, we can get the numbers, right, by using two different patterns. But what we can do is that we can combine both of them into one by using an OR to say either it's, this alphabet or numbers, so that we can split that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in here. After doing the A to Z, the plus part of it, I'm going to put a pipe, which is that vertical symbol there, and then do the next part of it. So see what I'm doing. It's kind of saying here that it could be A to Z plus, meaning that it could be characters, number of characters, or it could also be a digit I'll call, that has maybe one or more digits in there, something like that. Okay, so now you see that with that, I'm able to get everything broken down separately. English 34, French 76, which is great, because the delimiters are different. Here, English and 34 are joined. Here, there's a hyphen. So with this, it means that I can concatenate all of this and use this regex pattern, all at once. So what I mean is this. Now, you notice I'm just doing this for what? C7. Instead of doing C7, I can say join everything together, which is all the, all the text that I have here. Make it like one large thing. I don't really care because I know you'll be able to break it out, and break it out. Okay, so now you see that it's broken it out that way. Okay, so you can see everything. It's all broken down. So now that I have it broken down, I can then use something like wrap rows to bring it into something that looks neat. So I can say wrap rows, take this, and then it now says how many columns do I need per row? Because I know I want to have, Spanish 45, English 34, French, and I'll just say 2. Oh, did I get that right? Or maybe I should be doing wrap. Oh, sorry, I did H7. I should do H7 hash. Yep. Okay, yes. All right. So now I have this. So you can see that with this is very easy now to put into, this format. But let me do everything right here. So I will just put the wrap rows around this. Okay, so I'm going to do wrap rows around here, which is basically just what I just did, comma 2. Okay, so, all right, delete this. Okay, so this is everything. So now with this one, we can then do a group by. Group by is the equivalent of like doing a pivot table, because if you fed this into a pivot table, you should be able to get this. So I'm going to do a couple of things in here. Sorry, this is now more than regex. So I can say let, maybe the range that you have be this. So meaning that anywhere you see RNG, I'm referring to what you have there. So now I'm going to do a group by. The group by is saying, what do you want to have in your row? I want to have this first column, as that's what I want to have in my rows, so that it can give me a unique list like this. So how do I get the first column from a range? I could use take function and say take, give me the first column. That's one way. Then it says, what do you want as your values field? My values field is the second column. I could say take the range, do -1, meaning take it from, the right. And then it says, what do you want as your function? I say, I want to do a sum. So let's close the bracket. Let's close. Let's see what we get. Okay. Now, this is supposed to work, but this doesn't work. Why? Because when you use regex and extract, it's extracting text instead of numbers. Okay? So I need to find a way to make this what? Numbers. So I can come in here and say, if these are my values, I can just perform a mathematical operation here just to make that numbers. I can do minus. Okay? And I have this. The only thing that maybe I don't want here is the total, which I can fix with the, group by. So after this, I say I don't want headers and I don't want totals. Okay? And, I get what I want. But the heart of it is actually regex extract. So it's the regex that makes it easy for us to do this. Okay, so that's that example done. Let me go to the next example. I hope I'm doing well with time. It kind of looks like there are some nice things here, but I'll leave that first. Okay, so next I'm going to show you how to use, regex inside of XLOOKUP, since XLOOKUP and XMatch now have this functionality. So in this hypothetical case, well, hypothetical, but it could be real at the same time, but we have, our data set just having 3 columns: product ID, product name, and, the location. Okay, so now your manager comes to you and he says, oh, he's trying to get, the product name and the location for a particular product. He has some idea of the ID, but doesn't remember exactly. But good enough, since he's been with the company for a while, he knows that, oh yeah, this is one that's, as in is unique in some sense. So what does he know? He knows that it starts with, the text PRP. He knows that you have 6 numbers following that, and then you have 2 alphabets following. And you're like, okay, with regex, I should be able to get that for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to use an XLOOKUP to see if we can return, the product that the manager is referring to. Okay, so I'm going to do XLOOKUP. Now, in terms of my pattern, which is my lookup value, this is where you need to pay, the most attention. I know there's a PRP, right? And then I know that I have 6 digits. Okay, so PRP/D6, right? Then after that, I know I have 2 characters, alphabets. So I will say A here. I can do A to Z, right? And then I put in curly braces 2. So let's review this and see if it makes sense. So PRP here is how it starts. You have 6 digits, right? Then you have A to Z occurring twice. Okay, good. So now lookup array, we'll look it up in this because it's a product ID, so it will be found somewhere here. And then we want to return one of these 2, right? So next thing is we go to the match mode, and the last argument there, or the last value for the argument there is 3, regex match. Okay, and we choose that and we do enter. Let's see. Good. And it says, oh, it's a robot vacuum in Sorocaba. Okay, I'm practicing my Brazilian cities. I hope I had that right. Okay, so this is what they return. Sorocaba robot vacuum. Let's see. So let's filter down here to, robot. Okay, so we have robot vacuum, right? And it's in Sorocaba. Okay, so, but when you look at this, it doesn't look like it is, right? Why? Because it contains, yes, PRP, it contains 6 digits and, 2 characters. But the only problem is that it starts with an A. So it's APRP. But that's not what he said. He said it starts with what? A PRP. So what you need to do is that now we are not just looking for something in between the string. We want to make sure it starts with PRP. Okay, so let's clear this. So we need to modify our pattern again. So it means it's not just PRP, it starts with PRP. So let's put, a caret there. The caret there is saying don't just match in between, make sure it starts with PRP. So let me enter this and see. Okay, so now it says, oh, it's a router in, I can't even pronounce that, maybe Marcia. Okay, let me just use router. That's the one I can pronounce. Okay, all right. Okay, so now it looks like, yeah, this is it. But there's also a problem with this. It starts with PRP, it has 6 digits, but then it has 3 characters at the end. But we are looking for the one that has what? 2. Okay, so it means we need to modify this again. Okay, so it means that it should not just start with PRP and have all these. It must end with, the 2 characters. So you put $1 at the end. So what this is saying is that don't just look for this string in between as a substring, but make sure it starts with PRP and it ends with, 2 characters. So let's see what we have. Okay, so now it says it's a coffee maker. I hope this is right. I wouldn't do this in front of my boss. If not, I could get fired. Like, Victor, what are you doing? Okay, so now if you look at this one, you can see that we have 3 characters, we have 6 digits, and we have 2, alphabets. And this is the correct one. Now, the objective here was, just to highlight the importance, of knowing what it is you're trying to do and getting the right pattern. That's the goal here, So once you know what the pattern does and you understand it, you know how to modify it. And when you are faced with a situation, you must understand what is required to work in that case. If it doesn't have to start or end with it, you may not need to put the ampersand and the caret and the $, but if it has to, then you must put them. Okay, so in this example, I'm going to show us how to reformat, phone numbers. Okay, here, so you've seen this before where we have, a lot of phone numbers in this cell, all of them being 10 digits long, as you can see. But what I want to do is I want to format it to look like this, which is how, the American phone numbers are typically reported. You have 3 digits, which is like the area code, in parentheses, followed by a hyphen, followed by 3 digits, the exchange code, followed by a hyphen, followed by 4 digits, which is the line number. So I want to convert this to this, okay, using regex. But the first thing is at least be able to extract, all the phone numbers before you can do anything with them. Now, if we just had one number in one cell, we could use left, mid, and right to do it. But now you have a lot of numbers in one cell, so you need to find, a creative way to do it. So let's start with the regex, right? So I'm going to do regex extract. You already know the pattern here. And then I have a /d, which occurs 10 times. Okay, so it's saying the digit occurs 10 times, and I do 1, which is extract everything. It has some obstruction on that end, that's why we have a spill error, but I can use my to call, just to bring it, back. Okay, all right, so those are, the phone numbers, all of them. Those are the 10 of them. Okay, but now for me to be able to do what I want to do, which is be able to break it down into 3, 3, 4, then I must find a way in Regex to be able to extract it as that, as 3, 3, 4. If I do a /10, basically I'm just getting myself into like the same mid, left, right thing I want to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat this pattern, but this time instead of doing D10, I'm going to break it down and say D3, D3, D4, which basically is the same thing, right? 3, 3, 4 is 10. So yeah, but I'm doing that just because of, the end I have in mind. So I'm going to do 3 first, close that. I'm going to do another /D with 3. Okay, and I'm going to do another /D with 4, close. Okay, so let's see what we have. Nothing has changed, right? Because 3, 3, 4 numbers following themselves is 10 digits. So there's no issue there. All right. So now that we have this, let's take it one step further. The next thing I want to do is to be able to, capture them separately. So this is what happens. And if you check the cheat sheet, you will see that when you use parentheses, right? Parentheses are saying, group this thing. So group whatever it is I've put in parentheses. So this is what happens. When you use Regex extract the way you've done it, it's going to extract everything that matches the entire pattern. But you can, within each of them, now say, oh, I want subgroups. Okay, so I want these 3 digits to be one group, the next 3 to be another group, the next 4 to be another group. So what you can do in that case is you can just put them in, parentheses. So see what I'm going to do. I'm going to put the first one here, right, in parentheses. I'm going to put the next one here in parentheses. Okay, and then I'm going to put the last one here in parentheses. So you have to squint a little. I don't have my big screen here. Don't bother about whatever answer you get here. Okay, but the thing is this. Now that you've done it this way with those parentheses, this is what Excel would do. Not Excel exactly, Regex anyway. Regex will capture the first thing that matches everything and put it in group 0. It will then look at the first parenthesis there, it will match that and put it in group 1, the next one in group 2, the next one in group 3. So essentially we have group 0, 1, 2, 3. And if you want to reference each one, you just use a dollar. So if you say $1, what you are saying is, I want this one. If you say $0, you mean you want everything. $1 is the first, $2 is the next, $3 is the third. Okay, so let me take this pattern, the way I have it, and I'm going to use as in a Regex replace instead. So let's come in here and let's, mess with this a little. So I'm going to take out this, but I have the pattern basically. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to use a Regex replace. Okay, so Regex replace, take this. So we've put the pattern. Okay, so now this is saying Regex replace. Look at this string, match all these things that we've put in here. Now, in terms of the replacement, what do you want to happen? Don't forget, group 0 is everything. Group 1 is this first set of 3, which you want to be in what? In brackets, because that's the area code. So this is what you do. So you're saying, look at what you found and then replace it, change it to this. So I will tell it in brackets here now, capture 1. So what does this mean? This means group 1, whatever you've captured as group 1, put it in parentheses, which will be the first set of 3 digits. Put a hyphen, because the hyphen is not there. Then group 2, whatever you've captured as group 2, which is the next set of 3 digits, I want you to put it there. Then the next thing, hyphen, is I want you to then put group 3, which is the last set of 4 digits. How does he know the groups? The groups are based on these parentheses that I've put here. Very simple. So replace what you're seeing with what I'm giving you. Close this, okay? And then let's close the bracket and let's see. Okay, good. And now you can see that we have it replaced. So now all the numbers have been formatted to look like parentheses with 3 digits, hyphen 3 digits, and hyphen 4 digits. So that's excellent. So lastly, before I get out of here, is just to mention, that you could also use it in data validation, right? Which is like how I said at in the introduction about, websites and checking that whatever you entered matches, a pattern. So let's take this example, and I'm not trying to explain this long pattern here, but this pattern is, oh, what is this? So the point here is this. What I want to just do, show you how it works, is just to say you can put this in data validation and test if whatever the person puts there matches the pattern. So let me give you an example. Let's do this. Let's use Regex test and say test whatever the person puts here against this pattern. okay, and give me true or false. Okay, so now it says false, meaning that whatever I put in here as my email does not meet this criteria. Okay, let's try something else, maybe just an ordinary text. Okay, it still says false. Let's try and put something that looks like an email address. So Vic, let's say at gmail.c. It still says false, but this looks like an email address. Why is it not working? Well, if you look at the pattern a little, you will notice that at the end it says, you know, there's a 2 there, which is saying that it cannot be .c. It must be at least 2 characters at the end, maybe CO or NL or NZ, you know. So let's try .co, you know. Okay, and now it's true. So with this expression, right, as in this now, you know, you can basically, you know, put this in data validation. You could put the pattern itself in here, but you could put this expression in data validation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this, go to data validation, right, and then go to custom. Of course, anyone that gives true would work, anyone that gives false doesn't. So this is, you know, what it's validating itself again. So let's try and type something in there now. Okay, so you see that it doesn't allow, okay, until I put something that looks like what it wants. Okay, so now it accepts it, right? So you don't have to, of course, point to, I mean, a pattern on the grid. You can actually put the pattern in the data validation itself, do your protect worksheet and workbook so that nobody can, you know, edit it and all of that. But this is what, you know, makes it, you know, work. So that's what I have, you know, the time for. I'm just going to switch back here, you know, so I can show my last slide, which is to say, thank you. I hope you have learned, you know, quite a bit, you know, from, you know, Regex, and I hope it spurs you, you know, to try and see how you can take advantage of it to make life easier for you. So thank you, Cristiano. Thank you to the Excel Weekend team, and hope we come again next year. All right, I'm out.